So for the function, you have to use a header file called it's a cmaths for square root, cmaths. So all those functions like square root and then maybe power is for raising to the power something. You also use the header file square root, and then we also have other functions, like for example the other functions like for standard library we have, if you have done a string, you will see that you were using a function called getLine. Cin slash, you write the name of it, the name that you used when you were, the name that you used to declare. So for getLine function, you use a header file. For the getLine function, you use a header file called hash include string. And then we also have functions. This one I'm giving you to know now. We also have a function called for random numbers. If you check your exercise in your study guide, you will find that the first function when you are working with a program, for writing a program to generate a random numbers, when you run it, it was not working. So the problem part, when you use a random number, for the random number function, you have to use a header file. The header file is called cstd. You will see it when I type it. It's called cstdlib. You can see it, right? The moment when you type, it's gonna show you. This is the header file you use when you are working with what? With a random number, when you are going to generate random numbers. This is the function that you're going to use for random numbers. You have to include this header file. Without this header file, if you can write a program whereby it have to generate a random numbers, and you don't include this header file, so it won't run your program. It will tell you that it does not know this rand. That's the problem part. So you have to, that's the import. This is very important, because if you are writing program and you don't know a header file, you will have a problem in such a way that, like, you might end up give up and say, okay, I write this program but to others it's working, but when you run it, it's not working. So this one is for random number, and then also it can also work with, there is srand. Srand is just the matter of for simulation, when you can control it. When I say control it, you can, if like you want to, for srand is when you want to you want to tell the program that it must start to this number up to and end at that number. So you use the srand is for random number also. And then if, let's say for example, if you are using this, you are working with random numbers and you want to generate random numbers, every time if you are using this, if you keep writing your program, you will see that your program, when you run it, it always gives you the same numbers. It's either you first compile, then it's gonna give you again the other number, but when you keep running it, it's gonna give you the same number. But if you want it to change, you have to use a function called time. See time, we call it time like this way. This is a function that you have to use. So in order for you to use this function, standard library function in your program for time, this one is gonna make sure that it keeps changing. Then you have to use the header file, is called hash include ctime. It's called ctime. To use that this function is called ctime. And remember, all the function which requires, like, is about math, power, absolute value, like absolute value, you use the function cmaths. Absolute, there are many of them, just that some of them I might not write them here. But absolute value, you have to remember, it says for math. And then for changing the random numbers, you have to know is time. C time is called C time. The header file when you are changing the number is called C time. It's called a C time. So now let's say, yeah, it's called C time rent. Yeah. So far, like, there are many of them. There are many standard library functions. There are too many of them. Some of them you have to make the research, your own research on how to, your own research about it. So yeah. So now, as I have said to you guys, so if you can try, let's say maybe for like assignment 3 actually is very simple. It's just that because of you guys, you are new in programming, you think maybe it's hard, but it's the simplest assignment. Like, it's the simplest assignment. Just that if you are following, if you have done it a little bit, then you're gonna understand. But it's the simplest assignment. So, did you research about the word prototype? That one I showed you, I told you about. Okay. Yeah, I was asking. Yes. Okay, yeah, I was asking if did you make a research about the word prototype, the one I told you about it, that you must make a research. Okay. Yeah, the point, let's say I want to explain something to you actually before we begin, we proceed. The point with C++, don't expect all the questions they are going to ask you. They can ask you a very simple, for course 1511, a very simple question. They can ask you about Cin. They say, what is the beauty of a Cin? Why do you use Cin for? So you have to take into account those kind of small things. Like, don't expect big questions. Those kind of questions, maybe because now the exam is gonna be online, maybe they can ask you a big question thinking maybe you're going to be getting help from someone else. But normally in a venue based exam, they normally ask a very simple questions, and you will find that you don't understand them. So let's proceed with our function. Every time when you write a program, your function, when you write a program, if like you are writing a function, your main function, the main function must not be on top. Let's say if we have hash include iostream, hash include iostream. Let's say I want to write a function. I want to write a function, for example, I will just give you a simple question. I want to write a function that say how are you. I'm writing a function that says how are you. Or let me say any, I'm just gonna write any function. Return 0. So if you see this function, it's very perfect. If I compile it, there will be supposed to, must not give us some issues, and line here the problem comes.